Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Welcome. This is SCRR or SCRR. It stands for Scott's Comics Retro Review. What I'll be doing, the purpose behind this channel will be to review. It's for people who don't read comics, who want to get into comics and don't know exactly where to begin, or people who do read comics and quite possibly haven't read some of the books that I'm going to review in this. I'm going to pick books that I really like and basically review them. It's really that simple. Anyway, the first book that I'm picking is Watchmen from my very first video. I'm going back to 1986, and 1986 by many is considered to be one of the greatest years in comics, partly because you have three very good books that came out during that time. This is one of them. I'll be reviewing the other two in videos 2 and 3. And this book is on almost everybody's must-read list. Pretty much anyone who comes up with a top 10 list, this book is on there. It's at the top or number one. It's way up there. So that's the reason why, one of the reasons, main reasons why I picked this. Another reason is that this book has also literally changed my comic book buying habits, and I'm going to go into explaining how that happened and what goes on with that. Some of you may have heard of this. This is the movie that was based on the book. I know it says Blockbuster there. It tells you how long I've had this movie for. I went and bought it as a previously viewed movie after seeing it in the movie theater. In either case, what we have is, when I say that this book changed my comic book reading habits, before this book, I never bought books based on who was writing them. I always bought books based on who drew them. And the main reason for that is because you kind of had two styles of writing back then. One was called Marvel style, or plot first, and the other one was called full script. And I was kind of ambivalent about full script. It didn't strike me one way or the other as being better or superior. And Marvel style, or plot first, was developed by Stan Lee because he had so many books to read he had so many books to write as he was doing the Marvel Universe, as he was growing it. And he started relying more and more on his artists to pick up a lot of the duties that a writer would normally put into their scripts. So he would end up just discussing the plot most of the times with the writer and give them maybe each page would be a paragraph of a synopsis, of the book. So like, in other words, each comic book drawn page, like you have a page here that's drawn, each page would be a paragraph. That's kind of the way he did it. Then the more he relied on the artist, the less he ended up writing. For example, you have, there's a legendary story about the Galactus trilogy by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, in which Stan Lee basically just said, the next issue, I want the Fantastic Four to meet God. And what came back was the Galactus trilogy. And I'm going to review Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in other videos many times, I believe. We'll see. I'm pretty sure I'll be going back to those guys quite often. In either case, before this book, I never bought based on the writer, because many times you would have a great writer, say like Roger Stern, and he would be put with an artist that maybe wasn't all that good. So the plot would come back to him, and it wouldn't be very well drawn, and then he would have to kind of make up for the deficiencies in the artist. And then at other times, he would get a great artist, and everything that he had in the plot synopsis plus more was put in there, and he would, kind of punch it up, just make it even better. And that's an example of what I'm talking about, is that I never really went by the writer, because the story could be brought down if the artist didn't do what they were supposed to do with the book. So that's why this book changed my view in that sense. And in another sense, the reason it changed my view is because of the artist Dave Gibbons. Previous to this book, I had kind of thought that Dave Gibbons was kind of stiff in his artwork. I mean, I had seen some of his Green Lantern work, and Green Lantern, I mean, I kind of grew up reading Gil Kane drawing Green Lantern, and seeing it go from Gil Kane to Dave Gibbons was kind of a shock to me. And again, that was mostly my perceptions of how things were. I've come to grown to love Dave Gibbons' work. It took me a while though, and this book was the start of it. And I'm going to give you a quick example right here, what I'm talking about. In this particular scene, like see how he's like kind of punching here, and the guys are kind of standing there. It just came off as stiff to me. You got the guy running. Now, the storytelling is beautiful. Dave Gibbons is great at storytelling. He gives you everything you need. It's clear, and he puts everything in there. But like, again, look at this fight scene. Like a lot of comics are fight scenes. And again, they came off as, it's not that dynamic to me. So because it's not that dynamic to me, I kind of, when I saw this book on the shelf, I kind of flipped through the first couple of pages of the first issue and decided to put it back. A friend of mine, Gerald, I trust his taste in stuff. He's recommended movies and books to me in the past, and he's almost always been dead on. So we started talking about this book, back in 1986, and he said, no, it's good, you should pick it up. And I kind of chuckled a little bit, but because it was Gerald, I went back to St. Mark's Place in Greenwich Village, and I ended up buying, they were up to issue 3, I believe, at the time. So I picked up 1, 2, 3. They were all sitting there on the shelves, and ended up buying the initial whole thing. Now, since then, my whole collection's been gone. I've replaced this in trade paperback, and as you could tell, I've read this over and over again. It's been kind of beat up a little bit. Oh, there's Dave Gibbons, Alan Moore. It's been kind of beat up a little bit because I read it so many times. The thing about this book is that it's very densely packed. When Alan Moore wrote this, I was talking earlier about plot first. And then, like when you do a synopsis, you would do like a paragraph and it would equal a comic book page. In a full script, you would write up 1 page, and that would be 1 page of the comic. In Alan Moore's case, it was pretty much 1 page would equal 1 panel. and look, you got mostly the 9-panel grids here, and that's kind of how dense it is. Alan Moore would do things like it's probably not, sorry about that, I hit the camera. It's probably not so easy to tell, but you can read things like this newspaper print, the headline here, and you wouldn't understand what implications that's going to have for the story until back here somewhere. I mean, that's how dense it was. He's sitting there showing us a panel like this, Dave Gibbons' beautiful artwork, and this panel says so much, which you won't see until you finish reading the story. Right now, it just looks like the man's looking out the window, but there's so much in here that you can't really see until you get through the book. That's kind of how dense it is, and one of the reasons that makes it so great. Also, you have things like this where again, this goes back to the artistry of Dave Gibbons and the collaboration with Alan Moore. You have something like this where you have the R's, which it's supposed to stand for a drug prescription company, and you kind of see Rorschach's hat in the back here, and it's a Rorschach. The actual image is a Rorschach. That's the kind of things that's in this thing that makes this book that makes it so great. This particular cover, I don't want to give anything away. There's a hidden message in there. It's really quite beautiful. Once you see it, you'll be able to see it. It just kind of pops out at you. So it's one of the reasons why I ended up loving Dave Gibbons and Alan Moore and started following them around. This book itself, again, I don't want to give too much away. This book itself is kind of a textbook on how to do really good comics. Now, pretty much every cover, I'll show you the first cover. Here's the first cover of the first book, and you can kind of make it out, but you're not really sure exactly what the image is. But when you open up the cover to the first page, what you see is the same image, except the camera has pulled back, and the camera keeps pulling back all the way to you're at the top of a penthouse, it looks like, and you're looking down at the scene that's going on here. You have things going on in the background here as you're pulling up. There's characters interacting with each other, and it just goes on. This character actually shows up throughout the book. It's really quite amazing on how densely packed it is. Then getting back to this scene here, it's the same thing. You have the cover, and then you pull back and you see it's part of the statue. And what Alan Moore is doing here is he's telling the story, but you're in two different locations, and he keeps jumping back and forth between the two locations. And before this book was written, you would see things like "Meanwhile" over in California, but he sort of made comics grow up by eliminating that. And he does transitions back and forth, and I kind of want to show. I don't want to reveal too much, but I do want to show you some of the transitions in here on why this makes it such textbook. Here we're in sunny California. We're showing a scene there, and then it just cuts back to the funeral, and it's raining. I don't want to say who dies, but what happens is you have, for those of you who haven't seen the movie and those of you who haven't read the book, I don't want to say who dies. But in either case, I mean, you're told right up front, so there's really no surprise, but I don't want to spoil anything. But here you have this character, and it shows up a close-up of his face, and then it transitions over to something that's going on in the past. So he's thinking about, while the funeral's going on, he's thinking about his past connection to the rest of the characters in the story. I mean, it goes on like that throughout the whole thing. You have, you're here at the funeral here, and you're watching, the coffin in the grave, and then it does a close-up to this character, and then it just transitions, and now he's where he was thinking about. He was thinking about something else, and that's what I mean about a textbook. If you actually want to make comics, you can, get into it. Really, you could actually study this to learn how to make good comics. In either case, I wanted to sum this up by saying it is one of the best stories out there, and it's on almost everyone's greatest list. There's also, you can, there's a link down below on how to get this. There's going to be a link down below on how to get one that's like this. I don't actually have it yet. I haven't bought it yet. I've been meaning to. And there'll be a link down below to get one of these. Right now they're doing Doomsday Clock. And this isn't out yet, but as soon as it's available, as soon as the full story's out, I will go ahead and make a video on it. And then you have something called Before Watchmen. It wasn't well received, but it's got a lot of great creators in here that, I mean, look at that artwork. That's not a photograph of boots. That's a drawing. And the artwork is beautiful. The artwork alone to me is worth it, but I'll provide a link down below for that too. Well, I hope you liked my first video. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up now. I'm going to keep these around 15 minutes each time. I should be posting every other day, so I will have one also 1986 for not today, but tomorrow. Not tomorrow, but you get what I'm saying. Okay, thank you very much. This is SCRR or SCRR, Scott's Comics Retro Review. Have a great day.